Hey friends. In my last video, I talked about how our self-judgment alienates us from our own hearts. And I suggested approaching those moments with curiosity and interest rather than judgment. That's easy to say and harder to do. So I want to talk about some of my experiences trying to shift from a self-judging approach to a more curious approach and how that served me. Now, obviously, each person's experience is their own, and so I'm not saying that what I experienced is going to be exactly what you experience. But my hope is that hearing about how I approach this and how it has affected me will give you a foothold into figuring out how to make this work or how to give this a try in your own life. If you've ever tried to change something about yourself, and if you're watching this, I'm sure that you have, you know that the process of self-improvement is rife with opportunities to get down on yourself and to really beat yourself up about things that you don't like about yourself, but that you haven't been able to change yet. And if you take every opportunity to get down on yourself that is involved in that process, you can be stuck there for quite a long time. And it's really unpleasant because you spend most of the time beating yourself up. This is where curiosity is the road out, if you can choose that over judgment. And you can start in really small ways and work your way up to bigger ways. Like all things in life, this is an ongoing process. So let me give you an example from my own life. In my video talking about self-compassion during difficult times, I shared a story about a time when I behaved in a way that I felt ashamed of. A natural instinct when we're experiencing something that we don't like inside ourselves is to try to withdraw or push that feeling away. It's a sort of inner version of the fight, flight, freeze response. Ironically, this inner stiffening and withdrawing can lead us to sort of double down on the unwanted behavior in an effort to push it away, but we wind up sort of recreating it or creating more of it. You've probably observed this in people, possibly including yourself. Think of someone who feels guilty for forgetting something important, who then gives a transparent lie or tries to change the subject or sort of defensively picks a fight. All of these ways of distracting from the moment, but that actually sort of make a bigger problem or make the problem worse. So that would have been a natural response for me to sort of have that defensive reaction in the moment that I described. And what that could have looked like might be that maybe I wouldn't have given up my place in line, or maybe I would have sort of said something aggressively dismissive to the people around me as a way of sort of proving both to myself and to them somehow that what I was doing was just fine, even though I didn't believe that. So any of those responses would have been natural, and it's that kind of thing that really drives jerky behavior, which we all engage in sometimes. And when we're feeling bad, more of the time. But so in that moment, I could have chosen that sort of self-judging road, but instead I took a moment to sort of ask myself, well, why am I acting in this way that doesn't align with the person that I hope to be and think that I mostly am? And that curiosity led me to notice just how anxious and stressed I was feeling in myself. And it also let me sort of look around and notice that I was picking up on the anxiety of people around me without really noticing that I had been doing that. So by asking myself the question, suddenly I had much more context for the reason that I was behaving the way that I was. And I know from my own experience and observation that people who are stressed and anxious and scared, of course, are not going to be their most kind and generous and creative selves because of that difficult feeling and the sort of drawing in that happens with those feelings. So with that understanding, I knew that I didn't have to vilify myself. I didn't even have to ask the question of if I needed to vilify myself. Because I have been practicing this self-compassion for a long time, I could just see this is a stressful situation for all of us. It's natural not to be our best in stressful situations. And I could let it go. And from that moment, behave in a way that I felt better about. So for me, it's that introspecting in that moment, that curiosity and sort of interest in my own experience, either in the moment if I can, or when I'm introspecting about it later, or possibly both. That is the thing that sort of opens the door for me to understand myself better and therefore to understand my reactions better. And that curiosity then is the road out of a sort of vicious cycle of self-judgment. Bringing gentle curiosity to the moment when I'm behaving in a way I don't like always allows me to see a bigger picture and to understand myself better and move in the direction of greater self-compassion. And all of that then gives me the tools that I need to break the reflexive and ingrained response of defensive and pushing away behavior. I hope you'll try this with yourself. And if you do, I would love to hear about your experience and if it changes how you relate to yourself and the things that you want to change.